I'd like to say to all of the young innovators,
Black Lives Matter.
Could nonviolent action be used against ISIS?
You
Even
can
the
be
flutter
a
of
part
my false
of the
eyelashes
biggest
could make
scientific discoveries of our time. Every single person in this room has been affected by cancer. And we all have our stories of success and of sadness. Your mom or dad, your dear friend, my sister, your child, or maybe yourself. And we've all heard the numbers. Nearly 8 million people die from cancer every year. But what you might not have heard is that there are potential cures for cancer out there right now that are trapped in clinical trials, some for as long as 15 years. And what if I told you one of these is a chemotherapy treatment that has almost no harmful side effects? With very few exceptions, drugs are carbon-based, but this one is metal-based. It's made from a heavy metal you've probably never heard of called ruthenium. The drug has been named NKP-1339, which is a great name for a Star Wars droid, but it's hard to remember, so I'm going to call it Ru for the rest of this talk, short for ruthenium, the metal that's at the center of that molecule. Heavy metals do not have the best reputation in terms of health effects, but not that kind of heavy metal. Lead that has contaminated water in Flint, Michigan, and locally here in Salem schools. Mercury in fish is another example of concerns around heavy metal toxicity. So it makes perfect sense that you are not excited to go out and purposely put a heavy metal into your body. But before you decide that all metals are bad, let me tell you about a heavy metal that has saved lives: platinum. Before platinum was discovered, someone was just trying something new, and this accidental discovery changed the way that cancer was treated. Before platinum was a drug, men with testicular cancer had a 90% fatality rate. But after platinum was introduced, 90% survive. Ruthenium, like platinum, could revolutionize cancer treatment because of the unique chemical characteristics of ruthenium. So let's go into the details of that so you can discover and appreciate the elegance of Ru as an anti-cancer drug. And we are going to start with the periodic table of the elements. There's ruthenium right in the middle. The periodic table is organized so that in columns, the elements that are stacked up share similar chemical properties. So if we look at ruthenium, iron is right above it. So this means that they share similar properties. And let's talk about iron for a minute. So we know that iron is necessary for our health. Our healthy cells need it to grow and multiply normally. Cancer cells, on the other hand, are not normal. They are multiplying out of control. And like teenagers that are going through a growth spurt, they are constantly famished, and they have high nutritional requirements. And so the way that cancer cells feed this enormous hunger for iron is they have built on the outside of the cell these iron transporters. These transporters are like hands that reach out and know how to recognize iron and grab onto it, and then they can pull it inside of the cell. Now let's talk about chemotherapy treatment with Ru. Here is one of the proposed explanations for how Ru gets into the cell. Ru is injected into your bloodstream, and it travels throughout your entire body. And eventually, Ru comes upon a cancer cell. And what happens then is pretty amazing. Remember on the periodic table, ruthenium and iron were in the same column. They're similar. So these hands on the outside of the cancer cell mistake ruthenium for iron, and they pull it into the cell. The healthy cells do this too, but because the cancer cells have built 10 times more of these hands, they pull in 10 times more of the drug. And there's something else really interesting going on here too. Rue is traveling through your bloodstream, and it's actually relatively harmless. But like a chameleon, Rue transforms depending on its environment. And the environment of healthy cells and cancer cells is different. Cancer cells are working really hard. They are growing out of control. And just like when we're exercising and we're pushing ourselves beyond our normal limits, and our muscles get sore because of imbalances in oxygen and acid levels, similar thing is happening with cancer cells. These cancer cells, working so hard, use up a lot of the oxygen, and it throws the acid levels off. And this environment is precisely what causes Rue to transform from the harmless form to the deadly form. And this deadly form is what kills the cancer cell. The healthy cell also pulls in some Rue, but most of the Rue that goes in stays in the non-toxic form. This is something to be really excited about. The worst part of chemotherapy are the side effects. And patients who were given Rue in clinical trials experienced almost none. This is revolutionary in terms of the suffering that goes on, and if that can be reduced, it could change everything. So, this is now the frustrating part. Rue is not available on the market. Ruthenium drugs have been stuck in clinical trials for over 15 years. Why is this? There are two major sources of funding for clinical trials in the United States. One are government agencies, and the other pharmaceutical companies. Government agencies, they are only able to fund 5 to 10% of those proposals that they receive. And pharmaceutical companies, they need to see a return on their investment, so they can only carefully select those projects that they pursue. So if Rue is so promising, then why doesn't it get selected? Well, ruthenium is a heavy metal, and it still carries that association with toxicity. That has kept it in clinical trial purgatory this whole time. It's one of the major reasons for that. But you know about a heavy metal now, platinum, that saved so many lives of men with testicular cancer, and Rue could do the same with other types of cancer. The funding agencies are aware of platinum and its success, but there are other drugs out there that are promising as well that don't have that stigma of heavy metal, and those get funded. So, what can we do as a community to help our loved ones who have cancer? There is something, and that is with crowdfunding. You've heard of Kickstarter. That's been around for a long time. And more recently, there are some crowdfunding sites that are aimed towards scientific research, such as experiment.com and Cansado.org. There are skeptics out there who are worried about using crowdfunding for scientific research, with very good reason. The trustworthiness in science depends on the peer review process, where experts critically read and review the proposals that come in before they could ever receive funding. That is a crucial step in the continued trust in science. Cansado.org, this is a crowdfunding site for biomedical research. They have addressed this issue by establishing a review board made up of well-established and respected experts. And by vetting the projects ahead of time, they then provide a crowdfunding site with reliable projects. So with crowdfunding, we can look at those projects and we can choose what speaks to us. And then we can follow the progress of the projects online. This is a way that we can feel connected to those innovations that are meaningful to us. This is a paradigm shift in scientific funding. My research on ruthenium drugs is just one example of many. There are a plethora of scientific discoveries out there that are being worked on that could solve so many problems. and they are just on the brink and can't bust through because of lack of funds. But with crowdfunding, you can be a part of the biggest scientific discoveries of our time. Thank you.